Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
A recent report, well, it was 2014, but there are several reports that have happened since then, from Georgetown University's law school Center on Poverty and Inequality, found that Black girls, particularly those ages 5 to 14, are seen as more sexually mature and to know more about adult topics than white girls, and are perceived as less innocent. Then, on the other hand, we have the adultification of our boys. Black boys are perceived as older, more threatening, and less innocent than their white peers. And that starts probably around the age 9 or 10. Now, when we think about this, and we have seen case upon case, I think there was one just a couple of weeks ago where the little boy was accused of stealing a bag of chips, and there were 4 Syracuse police officers who were all over him. They stuck him in the police car. The poor kid was wailing. And, he was obviously just a baby. I'm sorry. If you're like under 10, you're still just a baby. And there was a big roar of this because there was a lot of police force for a child. And our boys are also adultified. When we think about that, we think about Trayvon Martin, who was just 17, and people complain, or the right wing media complain about this innocent picture that they had of him instead of the, I guess, hoodie, which meant that he was more frightening than George Zimmerman could take. But he was 17. He was a child. Tamir Rice was 12. He was a big kid, but he was 12. And he was shot within 3 seconds of the police coming to the park, where somebody said, well, I see a kid there with a gun. It may be a toy gun. But apparently they forgot to say that part to the police. But he wasn't given a chance to drop a weapon. If you ever see this horrific video of Tamir Rice, he was shot within 3 seconds. 3 seconds. We've also seen plenty of what I'm starting to consider, trauma porn of our children being slammed to the ground by police, by being slammed to the ground, being handcuffed by police, even when they're 9, as anywhere from 6 to 9 years old. And they always seem to see our children as not children. It's dehumanizing. And it's something that we as a community need to really fight, because our children are not allowed to become children. And if you will go on and you will read some of these studies, you will see that our children are not seen as innocent. They will underestimate white children's age. They overestimate Black children's age. So, sisters, where do I start with this? We need to stop, and maybe we need to start thinking about how we talk about our children first. Because when we start talking about our girls being fast, 6 years old, we need to start talking about our children and letting our children be children.
Where did these things come from? This perception, how was that started? Why do you think that is?
Is that one of those slavery time things?
I'm betting it is, because
it would make 12-year-old, 13-year-old girls start having babies.
And when they're little, as soon as they can, they would, be assigned to a kid to empty the chamber pot and take care of little Missy. So they were always working. You got a 5-year-old in the field. Maybe that's where that whole thing is that we're supposed to be more competent to do adult things. But the thing is that when that happens, our children aren't allowed to develop as children. They're not allowed to be afraid and get lost and ask help from a police officer because they have to be afraid of police officers.
Yeah, that's what's sad. And that's what has to be reversed. It's not our responsibility to help other people get over their irrational prejudice.
Right.
They have to pay a price for refusing to fix what is misshapen inside of their thinking. And it's not for us to try to adjust, oh, well, wear your hair like this or wear your clothes like this. No, no, no. I look however I want to look. You fix what's in you, because I'm a human being and I'm going to express myself however I want to. And that's my business. You fix what's in you that's twisted, that makes you treat me as anything other than a human being that's deserving of respect. So we have to toe the line with that. And for generations, we've always been thinking we got to fix whatever it is that they don't feel comfortable with. We got to fix it. No, we stop that now. That stops now. We
You
just
know, I
want
have
to
to.
look.
Okay,
And
well, let
they
me just talk
learn
about
how to
this
feel
thing.
like they're worthy of respect.
Yeah. Well, let me talk about this thing that I observed when Lavinia got her first job.
Mm.
Her first job was one of those Mayor Daley summer jobs. It was called Actor's Apprentice. And really, it was like learning how to uh, read some lines, learn some activities in the play. They learned all kinds of acting exercises. And that was really fun. I think she was in one play where she was the narrator, and then in another one, she had an actual character that she played. But the thing that impressed me with this particular job was an aside that they had where they had grouped together a bunch of police officers and a bunch of Black kids from the neighborhood to work together and make a play. And some of the things that they shared was quite illuminating. Number one, before they got to know each other, there was a little bit of a hostility
Mm.
between the two groups because traditionally there has not been good feelings. And as they learn to work together, you have these adult police officers, these young Black kids, and the kids said, "Well, in the beginning we were like afraid of you," and the police officers admitted that they were afraid of them. Okay, so what overcame this fear was the fact that they had to work together as a group. They got to know each other. Suddenly, the police officers were not the quote unquote big, horrible white police officers. They were someone's dad. And the kids, they were not these, unknown Black teenagers that, you would think were getting into all kinds of trouble. They became someone's kids. The dynamic between them changed because they got to know each other. And I wish that, the mayor's uh, administration had produced more of these kind of things. It's always about funding when you have something that might be workable in building good relationships between people that live in the community and people who also are supposed to be protecting the community. And some of the things that would have helped is if you have police officers that actually live in the community that they're
Right.
protecting. That changes the whole dynamic because now this kid is not some criminal. This is someone's kid that you know. And the dynamics are changed when the relationships between them are changed.
Well,
Well,
that's one of the things that, and I really like what here in Chicago, Father Michael Flager of Saint Swina Church, he
Yeah.
does this basketball program where the police and the young men from different street organizations even they have to form a team, and because nobody knows who anybody is because you put on the shirt from your team. But you have the mixture of the police and the young men, and they learn to work together. And again, like you say, the relationship changes. You become friends, you're teammates, you're striving together for something. I think that's more effective. Those kind of programs where you have people who've been opposite each other, you put them in an arena where they have to work together. I think that's the best way to fix the problem, so that you can see each other as the human being that you are, and not the stereotype in your mind. It makes me think of that movie, and I don't know if you all saw this. I'm trying to think the name of it. I think it was called. Was it?
Remember the Titans?
No, that was one. That was a good one. But it was a Disney movie. And I think it was called The Bear. In which both the bear, you heard the story from the bear's point of view, and you heard the story from the human's point of view, and each of them thought the other was the monster.
Yes.
And so what happened in the course of the story, the man killed the bear, and then the bear mother retaliated and killed the man. And so it was a whole long story, but the long story short is that they both learned to see each other as people and not monsters.
Well, this is the thing that happens, and it starts early with our children in school, because a lot of our children are taught by white teachers. They have found that even from the time they are toddlers, little black boys are punished much more
Yes, I've seen
harshly
that. Yes.
than little white kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that is because the teacher sees her child in a white child.
Mm-hmm.
She relates to that child as she would maybe if she had her child, but they do not see our children as children. So a kid who does a toddler thing like hitting another kid, they'll be kicked out of daycare, and then because they're the black kid, and so they are already starting that school to prison pipeline when they're 3. And yet, well, the white kid maybe threw a chair or bit someone, and maybe they're given a timeout instead. So we see the inequity very, very early, not even by the time they get to school, but we're talking preschool, we're talking daycare. And then they always, and they know that those children, what they're doing is age appropriate. It's age appropriate behavior. Kids hit, and they're taught not to hit. Kids throw tantrums, and they're taught, okay, use your words. But because our children are foreign to them, and they dehumanize them in a way, and they say, oh no, I'm not racist, I teach black kids. But you still see those children as a threat. You see them as more violent. You see them as more out of control, and so you punish them more harshly. Now they get to 5, and we have a 6-year-old who has a meltdown at school and is arrested. But you will never see a white child who is handcuffed for being 6 years old.
Right.
And so we adultify, we allow this to happen. And I don't say allow in a way in that we're letting it happen, but we're not meeting that fire. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating for us because people are saying, well, we're going to investigate. And maybe you get that teacher fired. Maybe you get that teacher reassigned. But the thing is that your child has already been traumatized. And my job is not to educate you on the fact that my child is a human being. That's your child. If you cannot see my child as a 5-year-old, and you see that child as a threat, like you say, well, they were scared, like the police officers were scared of the kids were scared of the police officer. Yeah, but the police officers are the ones with the guns. And if they fear for their life, that child may die.
Yeah,
and so that power dynamic is different already.
Right.
Tamir Rice was 12.
With a toy gun.
With a toy gun. And yet you had somebody who was in his 20s, Dylan Roof, walk into a church, murder 9 people,
And they took him to get
And
what?
they took him
McDonald's.
to Burger King
Yeah,
on his way to booking, and he
yeah,
did not have a scratch on him.
right.
And they start talking about, well, they were young people.
He's
Yeah,
a
they were
grown
young,
man.
but they were, you know what? They were not children, they were grown. And
Hmm.
yet we will lock up a 6-year-old.
Yeah,
So,
that's the problem. People not seeing other people as human beings, and it's not something that we need to do something about to fix. And
right.
it's their perception. They got to fix that.
Racism is a white problem. It is not, and
Right,
white people are the only ones who can fix it. Because
right.
we can't fix something that is being perpetrated on us. And asking people, the oppressed, to
Fix the
fix the
problem. Right,
oppression is ludicrous.
right. So it really comes down to how you're taught. And I remember, and I might have said this before, forgive me if I have, but I have a friend who teaches a college class, and it's an urban studies class, and children come from, well, actually they're adults because it's college. They come from all over usually the Midwest. A lot of them are from states like Colorado and Oregon, where black people, but they come here to Chicago to learn an urban
Experience.
experience, right? And so he has different people come in and lecture the class, and sometimes they'll have me come in and do a lecture for the class. His name is Salim Muakil, matter of fact, uh, host on WBON, and he's a bit of a historian himself. And one of the things and it's usually a predominantly white class, might be a couple of blacks, maybe an Asian or two, but I'll always ask them starting out, when did they first become aware of racism? And it's always a case early in their childhood. It'll be some adult person that either said something or responded to a black person in some kind of way, or they got fussed at because they brought home a black friend, or they were told, look, I don't care if you have to cheat, don't you ever let a black person win a game against you. I mean, all kinds of things, but it's always some adult person that introduced the idea to them very early in their childhood, before they even thought about race. So it's taught. And the thing
Yes.
about it is, we have to choose to unteach it and point it out whenever it erupts, and make the people accountable who do it. Don't take any excuses. Oh, well, we need to teach our sons to pull their pants up. Well, maybe they shouldn't wear those dreadlocks because that's an intimidating hairstyle. It's just hair. Okay, you want to show
Here.
half the butt? That's your butt. You're behind. That's fine. That's your style. You don't deserve to get shot because somebody else stereotypes in their mind, well, people who look like that probably do crime. That's stupid. And we have to not repeat stupidity.
Right.
When someone says, well, if we would just get our children to cut their hair, or wear nicer clothes, or talk better, whatever thing other people
We
think you have to
cannot
do to be treated like a human being. No, no.
we cannot try to turn ourselves into dark skinned versions of them to make them more comfortable,
Right, right,
because that because the one thing that you can't change is the one thing that is scary to them, which means that is their issue. That is their
right. I
pathos that they need to deal with. I can't, you know what? I don't care if I wore a blonde wig and spoke the king's English with, yes, I can when I want to, uh and sounded like, Becky from
Sunnybrook Farm.
yeah, Becky, no, Becky from Southern California. I can, it's not my job to make you feel comfortable with
right,
me. If
right.
you're not comfortable with me, that's fine. And if you're not comfortable with our children, and this is where we need to make sure that our children are allowed to be children.
And our
Because,
children are comfortable, because our
and
children
our
know
children
they're
are comfortable being children.
right.
That is the purpose of diversity training. I mean, I know that's what it is for adults, retraining people's minds, retraining them from the discriminatory type of teaching that they have absorbed through their lives. I know that North Park in Chicago, they're still doing Sankofa every year, where they will team up two people of opposite or different races to go through a type of trek where they will experience actual racial upheavals through different museums, different civil rights sites. They go down the civil rights path. They walk across, the bridge. They visit all these different places where there had been lynchings. They watch a lot of cinematography and movies that sort of exploit a lot of the racial tensions that have been brought across on film, the kind of things we actually grew up with, to actually train their minds to a different kind of thinking. And I think that that's for adults, but I think that level needs to be stepped up and even operated on in the schools, because you have teachers, they may come in with presupposed ideas about children. I mean, I'm hypersensitive to this, and I'll give you an example of what happened to me just Friday. Um, I was subbing for the music teacher who was gone, and so I had a variety of classes come through. And what we did, we were watching a music video of different instruments that were done. It was anime music. So I have this class of first graders that are lining up outside, and this little boy, he's black. He shows me his elbow and says, "Oh, do you have a band-aid? I got hurt." And I said, "Well, I don't know where Mr. Gonzalez keeps his band-aids. I would be glad to look." His teacher, now I know it was the end of the day. She probably had a rough day, 20, first graders all by herself. But she was, "He doesn't need a band-aid." And another teacher came out and said, "He doesn't need a band-aid." And I just thought, first grade, they're just a little bit older than kindergarten.
They're still
You know,
babies.
he had a little, he had the scab had come off, and I actually did find him a band-aid. But because I'm hypersensitive about that kind of thing, I sort of sense this hostility. And I don't know, maybe he's a child that gets into trouble all the time. Maybe he's not.
So what?
Maybe
Yeah,
he,
but he still
maybe
need a
he's just
band-aid.
black.
Yeah,
but
exactly. So
but
what? He's
I
still
don't
a
know why
child.
you have to be all hostile
Yeah.
about something like giving a little kid a band-aid. Even if it was nothing, just give it to him. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
You should have kissed
Yeah.
him also. Oh, you got a boo-boo out kissing.
You know what? Sometimes they just need attention. It's like people
Oh,
who always say, like, "Oh, just let your baby cry. Don't pick him up. You'll make him spoil." Your baby has one way to communicate with you.
yeah.
If your baby is crying, I don't care if that baby just needs to be picked up. Pick
Pick
your
him
baby
up.
up.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is that we want to, like, have our kids. "Oh, you don't need this." I ask
You
for it.
need
I mean,
love.
I
they're
don't
like,
care
he's
how,
fine. He doesn't
you
need a
know.
band-aid. He's fine.
No, he's not fine. If he was fine, he wouldn't ask for it. I don't care
Yeah.
if the scab hadn't come off. If he felt whatever he needed attention. And this is what the thing is that what we do, we decide our children don't need attention. They don't need care. They don't need love. They need to be tougher. You know what? The world is going to chew them up and spit them out anyway, but we don't need to be there with the first set of teeth. We need to
Ooh, I
be
like
able
that.
to nurture our children,
Yes, yes.
and so that they can, if they need a band-aid, okay, you can, and that's the thing, is that we start out very early talking down to our kids. And if they're dark-skinned kids,
Yes.
you will find that
They
even
get treat
even in
worse.
our community, and I'm gonna tell
Yes.
you, colorism's real.
It
Let's
is.
not pretend it's not. But
It
you will
is.
find the dark-skinned kids, boys and girls, are treated worse.
They are. I remember when Sultan was teaching they had him teaching a performing arts class, and he was going to the schools and some of the classrooms, and he said he noticed a pattern. All of the dark skinned children were sitting in the back. Now the teachers were black, so you can't call racism because they was black.
Colorism,
They
it's real.
colorism. And he said, "Look at your classroom. Have you noticed something?" And the teacher like, "No." It's like, why are all the dark skinned children in the back? And of course, the teacher, she had some kind of excuse. Oh, well, these are the ones that, yeah, whatever it was,
Oh
it was
no, you keep your naughty kids in the front so you can see them.
yeah.
You do
So they
not
Right,
put
was
them in the
focusing
right.
on
back.
right.
So that
So
couldn't have been her excuse.
yeah, I mean, she really, she whatever lame excuse she gave, and my husband, so son, he was like, I'm seeing this in this whole school, and because I think the classroom was like fifth, sixth grades, And it
Yeah.
kept seeing the same pattern. And the dark skinned children were always in the back. And then, of course, they responded less. And I think the teacher said, well, they tend not to be as to participate as much. Well, I guess not if you stick them in the back.
Yeah.
So
you're letting them know right away, we don't want to hear from you.
we don't want to hear from you. You just shut up and sit down and be quiet,
We need to stop adultifying our own children. And if we will
Yeah.
stop doing that, if we will come to grips with our colorism
Yes.
and deal with the children as they are children and embrace the melanin that God gave us
Yes.
and
Yeah.
God gave your children, because those are the kids who are going to be looking best when they get to be our age. So
That is
um
true.
but we need to stop doing that and then not let others do that, so that
Not
we
let
can,
others do it.
because there's so many things
Okay.
that our babies have to deal with. When we were talking about your first sense of racism, I was 6 years old when we were on our way to grandma's house, and I remember them not renting a hotel room for us because because they didn't rent to colored people. I'm reading a book now about, it's called The Warmth of Other Suns, and this was going on in the
I think I have
40s,
that. Yeah,
in
I
the
think I have
50s.
that book.
And this was like, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that's my first memory. Well, that's probably not my first memory, but that was my first experience with actual racism, where they would go in and say, yeah, you got 3 little girls. The oldest is 10, and
Mm.
you can't even,
9.
yeah, 9, and you don't
Wow.
even want a hotel room for them. So we had to drive all night. So this is the thing. So our children already have to deal with racism at such a young age. We do not need to adultify them and allow other people. So parents, get ready to get up there, get your hackles up, take your earrings off, because we all know what that means. And get
Right.
up there and talk to those teachers when you see that your child is being adultified. If they're
Yes.
having a problem,
Yes.
you go up there and says, listen, my child is 6 years old. You will not treat him like he's 21.
Absolutely. We have to fight for the right for our children to be children when
And
they're
the same thing with sexual the predation that happens with our girls.
yes.
The Me Too movement was formed because Black girls were being
Yes.
raped and molested, and people were just letting it go. Well, they fast. They're children. If they're under 16, they're under the age of consent, which means any activity that they have is illegal. They're not fast.
Right.
And if they're 16 and the boy is older than 18, that's also illegal.
Yeah.
So we need to stop sexualizing our girls and boys,
Yeah.
and adultifying all of them.
Right. They're
And
children
this is
until they're
our community, because we have to be the ones who step up and say, you will not do this, because the studies are showing. And we'll have to do a whole other thing about how they don't even take care of our medical needs by not giving them, pain
right.
relief.
Hey,
That's a whole nother show.
We gotta go, but feel free to write in your comments. Have your children been adultified? Have they been neglected? Have you been encouraged to not tend to their needs because you're told you're babying them and they're babies, they're 4, 5, 6 years old, and you've been told to not give them attention? Think about it. Well, write in your comments and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, 3 Black Moms, and like our Facebook page, 3 Black Moms. Until next time, I'm Naima.
And I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Barbara. We are 3 Black moms. Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're 3 Black Moms.